Let's discuss consulting trends for 2023.
Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same, cause that's what it takes.
Welcome to a brand new year. My name is Russell Pearson. This is the Consulting Business Podcast and episode number 18, I believe. Today we're going to be talking about this new year in 2023. We find ourselves in January. Welcome to it. And today I want to discuss the trends that I see happening this year. Some of the things that have sort of come across from last year. In fact, they've come across from a number of different years in the past, but they're really going to play a part this year. And if you don't have your head around them, then I think you're going to find yourself falling behind and potentially living in a bit of fear. I think there's a lot of bit of fear going on at the moment. A lot of people are saying that there's... on one hand, there's like, oh, this year's going to be full of opportunity. On the other, it's like, well, I don't know. I'm still, a bit hesitant as to how things are going to play out. When it comes to in-person events, for instance, there are a lot of people wanting to get back to in-person events. A lot of people are going, you know what, I don't really want to. There's this, in fact, do you know what? It's interesting. There's this massive divide, and this is not one of the trend pieces that I'm talking about, but you will have seen this in politics already. Massive divide from left to right. There's this massive divide on just about every field of expertise across the world. People like saying, this is true, no, that's not true, that's fake news, this is true, all those different things. But when it comes to business as well, there is this sort of divide of introvert versus extrovert. And while we know that's a spectrum for people, it's not you're an introvert, which means that's only what you do, or you're an extrovert and that's only what you do. There's a spectrum for people, and obviously, conditions change. But there seems to be this massive divide where the introverts are going, you know what, I really love this virtual world, and just quietly I'm one of them. But I'm liking talking through people to people through a camera. I'm enjoying sitting in my studio. I'm enjoying not having to go to in-person events and all that other thing. Although those other things. On the other hand, the extroverts are actually going, no, I need my energy. I need my fix of people. I need to be around people. And a really nice definition I was given recently is that introverts, the thing about being an introvert is that you get your energy from being alone. Like you can recharge alone. And then being around people actually takes energy. And on the flip side, I always talk about a lot about energy actually. On the flip side, you've got extroverts who get energized by being around other people's energy, and alone, that's actually quite draining for them. And so I've talked about energy a lot, especially in the Marketing Report podcast. And if you haven't actually seen that, go and check it out. Marketing Report podcast. We did 100 episodes all around marketing, especially in the specialist and advice space. But in that point about energy is really all you've got, especially when you're running a practice, when you're the one who's a practitioner within your business. You've got the energy that you spent in the past, which is the money and resources that you now have. You've got the energy you're going to spend in the future, which is your time, right? And so energy is really all you've got. And so where you spend your energy is a massive part of not burning out, avoiding the burning out, and actually getting to where you want to be, right? So let's put energy to the side. I am seeing that is certainly a trend that I'm seeing is this massive divide of all things. Everything's becoming so binary. But that's not one of the trends that I'm going to be talking about. Another one of the trends I'm not going to be talking about, there are 3 trends I will talk about. We'll get to those in just a second. But one of the ones I'm not going to talk about is recession. There is definitely people talking about recession in different countries. Definitely the US, it looks like it's sort of headed that way. I'm in Australia, and people are talking about the flow-on effect of that, but I think we're in a very different environment over here, a very different situation. One of the reasons we didn't get hit as hard by the global financial crisis back in 2008. There are different circumstances for different people around the world, so it'll be different for where you are. But still, there are a lot of people talking about recession in general, and while that's important to note because it's like an environmental thing, it's a context that people are going to be able to see the world through. For advisors, consultants, specialists in any area that are actually giving some form of advice, guidance and consulting, is that change is the great constant for us, which is that we are helpful in this time. We are very useful and highly valuable in this time of change. as long as we are keeping up with it. Now, I talked in the previous podcast about identity. How do you see yourself? And if you are an expert in your space, then making sure you're expert in researching and in continuing to develop in your space, but at the same time understanding the context of the space that you're in, so you can understand how context is changing for people as well, so you can have those conversations. So that's definitely changing, but I don't think we need to focus there. I don't think we, personally at all, need to focus on recession as how should we change the way we work, unless we're dealing with potentially organisational change, certainly government change. I think more than likely all we're really going to experience is that sort of decision-making slowdown. Of like, I can't make a decision yet, or I'm not going to make a decision yet for whatever reasons. But I think the onus is on us as guides, as consultants, as advisors, to understand that sales process is part of the advice. Helping people make a decision to make a decision, helping people make a decision to take a step is part of the process. And I think that it is now time for us to understand that, because one of the trends I'm going to be talking about will be around outcomes. And how do we get someone to an outcome? Well, we can't get them to an outcome unless they agree to actually do the work with us. So getting someone to that first point is part of the process. So if you don't have a strong sales part, talk to me about it, because we've got some really straightforward and very easy, very conversational sales processes that work effectively, especially for consultants, probably just like you, right? But let's get on to the trends, because we're not going to talk about those other things. Otherwise, I just did for the last, 5 or 6 minutes. Let's talk about the 3 trends I think are going to be crucial to get your head around in 2023. Number 1, artificial intelligence. Now, we're now at a point where it's not just machine learning, and I don't have to get to a point where I go, artificial intelligence, I mean machine learning. I don't have to say that anymore, because we're at a point of artificial intelligence where it's very difficult to tell, was this done by a machine or not? And with things like Chat GPT, with GPT-3, GPT-3 is what I meant to say. What is the other one? DaVinci 3.5. There are all these different types of artificial intelligence that are now starting to get into a space of really affecting our area of expertise. Now, for some people, they'll be like, no, that's still science fiction. I'm just going to keep doing the way I've been doing it forever. That's fine. Sure. But in a very, very short period of time, there will be artificial intelligence which is now giving advice. And to be fair, it already is. There is artificial intelligence which is already shortlisting medical work. There is artificial intelligence which is already giving advisors a boost before they actually go into meetings. Like, I know one of my colleagues, for instance, has an artificial advisor who they ask to give them a report on the top 5 trends within a specific industry before they go and actually meet with a company in that industry, and they go in with a report and they say, well, what's interesting about your industry right now is these 5 things are happening. And they're like, oh my God, I knew about one of them, but I didn't know about the other 4. And they're better armed. So if you're not looking at how you can arm yourself with even more effective tools as an advisor, well, then potentially you're doing your clients a disservice. So there's an opportunity there for you to do the role better. And just about every area of expertise now, there are niche-based artificial intelligence applications, so little apps, that'll help you do your job better. So now is the time to start researching. Now is the time to start looking around. And potentially, if you're in the space, if you're in that tech space, maybe there's some opportunity to start leveraging the technology that is now where it is, so that you can start developing some of these things for yourself or for the world, the industry, right? So to give you even just one example that's been around for a couple of years now, in the photography space, there is an artificial intelligence app, where one of my clients, who was a specialist photographer, was able to, they can upload 300, 1,000 photos, whatever they want. They do a photo shoot. They upload their photos, and they get the AI to just go and retouch them for me. And within moments, it's retouched all these photos, and it's done it to a quality that he's very happy with. Now, he's like, well, actually, no, I'm not quite happy with these 3 or 4. And so he'll go and retouch them and the artificial intelligence learns from the retouching that he's added to it, so that next time it actually brings that consideration into the mix. And so each time he uploads these photos, there is less and less of them that he has to retouch, which is not just saving him hours, it's saving a full role in his business, which allows him to like go and do the thing he loves doing, which is taking photos. And then the retouching is almost all done without his interaction. The same thing can be happening with a lot of your businesses, and I think now is the time to go and see where it's at. Like, what applications are people using in your industry, in your sector? How can it be boosting your role in particular, and how can you actually bring it into the business now? So definitely worth looking at. The ones that are getting around copywriting in particular, I know there's a lot of kids that are loving it. The idea that it's going to write a report. I saw a piece the other day where a 10-year-old was asking the artificial intelligence to write him a report on a specific subject in the style of a year 10 report, right? and it wrote it, and it actually had the right languaging, it had the right tone for coming from a 10-year-old, right? So it's that level of sophistication at this point, and at the very least, it's creating great first drafts, which are enabling you to speed up what you're doing, and often to be more effective, because at this point, the idea that robots or artificial intelligence can't be as creative as humans is starting to be blown out of the water, especially in the artistic space, especially in the writing creative space. I've played with it myself, and it's incredible. So I recommend that you go and have a look at it. Now, artificial intelligence, it can feel scary, right? I'm a little concerned about not the robots taking over and like Terminator style scenarios, but I'm even a little bit concerned about what does that mean for the future of me, all right? A lot of people are saying that the Gen X and above won't be the people that will actually make these things work as effectively as they will. It'll be the Gen Ys and below. And I kind of agree with that, which is probably why I'm feeling a little bit shy about it. Like, I'm like, all right, well, I've got another 20, 25 years of solid work behind me, if not more. Probably way more, actually. But like, we've got that sort of time frame. This thing's going to come up on behind me like a steam train and potentially wipe out the need for having advisors and consultants. Maybe. All right. So how do I actually engage with it now so I can be there with the technology while it's happening? Well, I need to be adaptable. All right. And so that's number 2. How to be adaptable or flexible to the environment we find ourselves in. Now, we've been taught that over the last few years, haven't we? So during pandemic times, adaptability. I have been jokingly saying that, we'll be looking at the great internet shutdown of 2024. It could happen, people. Now, I'm not saying that it will happen, but we need to be flexible for whatever actually does happen, so that we don't sit there trying to hit our heads against a brick wall trying to go, well, this worked before, why doesn't it work now? We need to be at a point now where we go, bang, oh, I hit my head. Oh, why did I hit my head? Oh, okay, because this is not working exactly the same as it worked before. All right, what's a different way that we can actually test and try? So being adaptable, being open to testing, being open to understand that failure is going to be part of the way forward, being open to being flexible in how we do what we do, while at the same time having great processes, systemization, but being able to adapt those systems as we need as things change. Now, it's not going to just go like, all right, this week we're going to change, and that week we're going to change, and this week we're going to change, and that week we're going to change. As long as you are putting a finger on the pulse, as long as you are engaged with your market, with your environment, with your ideal clients, as long as you've got your finger on the pulse, you will know as things start to change, and you can get way ahead of these things. So being adaptable doesn't just mean being able to adapt, being adaptable, right? So it doesn't just mean that. It means actually having some scaffolding around you so that you know when to adapt. And part of that is actually making sure that you're in touch with the market. Now, the barrel is one of the things that I've taught in the past. Certainly one of the things we teach in the Forge Business Program around how you can stay involved in that conversation in your community. And when I say community, your purchasing community, the client community that you have out there, your market. How do you stay in touch with that so that you can have your finger on the pulse? Because offers in particular, most of you know that I've got 26 years in marketing, sales, and promotional experience. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that's changed in a moment. But the thing about that is being in touch with the context of the environment and the context of the conversation that people are having around you. Is important, because when you make offers, and that's the way you have people say yes, is you make an offer and then people say yes. Okay, people can be referred to you, but you still need to make an offer for them to say yes, right? So making an offer in a way that touches on that context, that actually speaks to them where they're at and helps them come on the journey with you, is part of the process. So do you have a way to have your finger on the pulse? Do you have the way of having a industry segment market feedback loop? If you have that inside your business, and then have the mindset to be able to adapt, so adaptable, then I think that you're going to be in a great space, because the person who has the most flexibility right now, it's always been this way mentally, but I think the movement, the ability to move and flow through positions in the market is actually a really, really crucial one for you to not just exist, but really take advantage of the situations that are happening around us. So, number 2, your ability to adaptability. Right. Number 3 is outcomes. Back when I started doing the work that I'm doing now, it was back in the 90s, and in the 90s we were talking about solutions. Everyone had to be the solution provider, and if you didn't have a solution, you were no one. All right. Times have changed, and as we moved from the 90s, we got into the 2000s, we got into the noughties, I guess people were calling them, for want of a better term, was it the 2000s or the noughties? And it was all then about sizzle. Right? Everyone wanted to sell the sizzle, especially the early part. And then we had like 9/11 happen, we had the tech bubble burst, a whole bunch of things happened around that time. And people discovered it was really hard to sell the sizzle without the steak, because as a sizzle doesn't say much without a gorgeous picture of a fantastic looking steak. Apologies, vegans. Sorry, not sorry. So I do love a steak. Now, we moved from there, from selling the sizzle, to understand that we need to sell features and benefits, because the sizzle was really about just the benefit. But what was the feature underlying that? So features and benefits became important to actually sell both of those things. And then what we've realized is that people don't really care too much about the features and benefits, as long as they get what they want. If they got what they get out of it, what they wanted to do, getting into it, and then it becomes very much about outcomes. And so once we've passed 2020, it is very focused on outcomes. And so really, this is back to the flexibility piece, this is back to the AI piece, it's building on top of that. How can we get better outcomes than anyone in the market? And I don't say us as a collective, I mean you. How do you get better outcomes than you did yesterday? Not by just improving by 1%, as people say to do. You can certainly do that personally, but how do you improve your outcomes? By just stepping back for a second and go, all right, the people who are coming to us are generally in this position, or maybe one of 3 positions, and they want to get to one of these 3 other positions, these outcomes. So they're in a place of symptom. They're in a place of, I'm experiencing symptoms, I'm experiencing problems, all right? They're there. And they don't want those problems. They want to get to outcomes. They want to get to this other place. What is going to be the most effective and ideally the most efficient way to get from here to there? And I say effective and I say efficient because efficient, often people go to fast instead of efficient. It's not about being there the fastest. It's being there in the fastest way to get the best outcome, which really for me is effective. And I know I do a lot of wordplay these days, but I think words are important, right? So how do you design a way to get from the problem they're experiencing to the outcome in a way that is the most effective. And I would suggest that if you actually put out your current way of doing it and said, is that the fastest way? Or even putting your current way of doing it behind the scenes. And just say, if I was starting from scratch, if I had a clean piece of paper, and maybe that's an exercise you can do, you get a clean piece of paper out, say problem on one side, outcome on the other side. What are the steps that I would actually take to get there? You know, will it take me 10 steps together? Will it take me 6 steps together? Will it take me 3 steps together? What is the fastest way that is going to be the most effective? Do these steps need to exist? And if they do, what is the best way of implementing this step? And I bet if you did that on an annual basis, you would actually find that the way you've been doing things may no longer be the best way because of new technology, because of new learnings yourself, because of changes in the environment and the context. So being able to go back and design other ways of doing this even better will enable you to get better results for clients, right? Which is only going to be good for everybody, which means you're going to get better referrals from clients, which again is going to be great for you and for those people who are referred because you've got a better way of getting to the outcomes. And finally, it's going to be better for you as a professional because when you see the things you put in place helping those people win, it does a lot for your confidence, and it also does a lot for your understanding of what worked and what didn't work. And so redesigning those things and looking at design on a regular basis around outcomes becomes so crucial. Now, you're doing that with clients probably on every single project. Wouldn't it be amazing to actually step back and actually have a look at your own process and do that as well? Now, there may be people out here that go, well, I treat every project as its own little entity, and we run a new process on every project because we're looking for the best outcome for the project. Sure, absolutely. But there's 2 things to say on that. Number 1, people trust you more if you have a process going in. In other words, you've done this before, right? And we know that all projects are a little bit different. They have different people in them, sure. But in essence, there is a philosophy that you have, a process that you have. If you were to think, all right, well, in most cases, we're going to have some form of diagnostic here, all right? Now, what the diagnostic is may change, but we're going to have to do an evaluation piece of something, right? Based off that, we're going to have to be able to, strategize some steps. We're going to have to create a plan, and then there's all the parts of the plan that you would put in action. That's 3 steps already. But are there better ways to do it? And the reason for niching, the reason to get more specific around the people that you want to work with is you get to do that process over and over and over again, which enables you to get really good at it. Really good at it. And I've heard people say, but if I niche, I'm going to get bored. I'm going to be doing the same thing over and over again. And I will invite you to reconsider that position because the reality is people are all different. So no matter how many projects you work on that may be following a similar process, the people inside those projects are different, and they create the 90% of things that go squiff wrong, are creative and interesting, are around the people in the project. It's got nothing to do with your process. So even if you did the same thing in the same niche industry for 10 years, there are so many creative ways to find it simply because of the people that you're actually engaging in there. Because it is your role as the designer of strategy, as the designer of outcomes, as the consultant of outcomes, to understand that you've got to be designing these things with the client in mind. So if this client, isn't going to put stuff into action without you, then you don't design a strategy that incorporates them having to put stuff in without you, because you're dooming the strategy to fail, right? I saw there's a trailer for Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is still coming out. It's a remake, and hopefully a good one, with Chris Pine in it, right? And they're going, "What's your role here?" And he goes, "I'm the planner." And they go, "Well, once you've made the plan, why do we need you anymore?" He goes, "Well, if the plan fails, I've got to be here to correct the plan." And the person said, "So you make plans that fail, right?" And so we don't make plans that fail, but we understand that people are a nuance, and people are a chaotic element in our plans, and so sometimes they need to be changed because a plan is not effective without understanding the nuance of the people who are going to implement it, right? So Bit of a sidebar, but the point being that this year, beside the binary effect of what's happening in conversations, beside recession conversations, beside a whole bunch of other things that are just happening in politics and that's happening in the social space, right? Social culture is changing hugely, right? That's contextual for you. The three things I think are worth focusing as far as trends for this year are artificial intelligence. My recommendation would be to explore, discover, understand how you can start bringing this into the work that you do. Number two is the ability to be adaptable, and being adaptable means that you've got your finger on the pulse so that you know when to adapt. All right, so having structure around you to enable that. And finally, making sure you're focusing on outcomes, and not yesterday's outcomes, but actually today's outcomes. Do you need to redesign things? Can you redesign things? Because sometimes it's not about, I need to redesign things. It's not about that. It's like, yes, I get to redesign things, which means that I have an opportunity to get better. I can actually see opportunities to get better and get better results for my clients. If you'd like to know about how to build a process for this adaptable model, if you want to know how to actually build an expert framework, which is one of the things that we actually teach inside the Forge Business Program, I'd love to talk to you about it, because it's a very cool functional way that you can build a process for your consulting business, which is adaptable and will enable you to grow and develop and engage far more people if that's what you want in your business. So reach out and we can always have a chat about that. I wish you good health, good fortune, and all the good things for 2023. I think it is going to be an exciting year, certainly for me. I've got my theme for the year. I always do a theme for the year, and mine's about magic this year. I think that's about there's an opportunity to make magic, and so that's what I'm going to be focusing on. I wish you success with all the things that you're going to be focusing on. If you need any support, put up your hand, reach out, contact me privately. You can get me on just about every social platform there is. I'd love to chat with you. You know, so I might have a few ideas. Until next time, potentially go and visit businessconsulting.com. You know, there's some resources there, past episodes there. If you're watching this on YouTube, I would love you to subscribe. If you're watching, and you can get the podcast on just about every podcast platform you like, do that. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can't see all my hand movements, but that's absolutely fine. Go and check us out on the on YouTube. That's always a good place too. But do subscribe on the podcast too, so we can actually get these episodes each week to your listening ears. Until next time, stay passionate, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us on Your Consulting Business Podcast. Make sure to click the subscribe button for future updates, and also make sure to go to consultingbusinesspodcast.com for goodies made especially for you by yours truly. I will see you on the site.